What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the online Jamly? This, of course, here is Jamiroquai 2000 with yet another special interview episode of the QUAICast, a Jamiroquai podcast by the Jamly for the Jamly. In today's special episode, or should I say episodically interviewable, lovely episode of the QUAICast, I'm going to be interviewing one of my fellow moderators of the recently newly opened official Jamiroquai Discord channel. Yes, you're hearing this correctly. This isn't just your imagination after eating too many root beer card candies. No, they've actually opened an official Discord for Jamiroquai on the Discord social media platform. It's called JK Hat, and I'm one of many plethora of great new moderators there, and I thought I'd do an interview episode with one of the up and coming moderators on the server, a person on the server who I've gotten to get to know, and his name is Nautic. And go ahead, hold on a second, and we'll let you say hello there, Nautic. 1 second. Okay, go ahead and say hi, Nautic.
Hey, and thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm really honored that you took me out of all people in the moderation team to come and interview or be interviewed by you.
Yeah, it's very lovely to have you on the QUAICast, Nautic, and as typical with most my interviews here on the QUAICast, I'll start with the first question. I do have several questions. Now, with Jamiroquai Official coming to Discord, have how to found an official server that is quite a daring move for their marketing department. What would you like to see them do or plan out for the official Discord for the Jamly on the official Discord on JK Hat in the future?
Well, really, what I want for the future is I want more community involvement within the Jamiroquai space. I feel like we have had previous text chat forums within the Jamiroquai space and the Jamly space, of course, especially stuff that's been moderated by you in the past, like your Discord server and that examples of that kind of stuff. But really, what I want to see is more community interaction between sort of the official Jamiroquai heads and the community that preserves Jamiroquai and is actively encouraging Jamiroquai and that general audience of people. And I really hope that we can start to see more involvement within the Jamiroquai space and an actual official place to talk amongst Jamiro fans like me and you.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Nautic, on that answer. I honestly hope that this foray by Jamiroquai Official into Discord will yield lots of more, yes, you put it absolutely brilliantly, more interactions between the community of each other, not to mention a tight-knitness in the online Jamly as a whole, because I remember they originally said that they were unhappy because there was no major conduits on social media for the Jamly to meet and to congregate and to talk to each other. So that leads me into my next question. How long have you been been contributing to the online Jamly, and what is your preferred social media platform to use in your weekly, daily, hourly basis when you're on social media?
Personally, I have been sort of a lurker. I don't really post anything or haven't posted anything until I got into Discord. Mainly I use Discord, but I use Instagram sometimes, just mostly to check on the Jamiroquai official Instagram. But mainly I've just been using Discord, and sometimes I use Reddit. And most of the time I'd just be lurking, especially in the last 6 years that I've been in the Jamly. And you might not even, I don't think you've heard of me before then because I was just a lurker, right? I liked seeing the news, but I didn't really want to involve myself. But I think I found a nice space within and nice community within the JK Hat, and I'm really happy to be here, and I feel appreciated.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I mean, my history in the online Jamly is nearly over. Probably online Jamly is nearly 25 years at this point. But as of, I want to say, very, very recently, at least in my interactions with social media, I stuck to the big four social media outlets, mostly during the automaton era. Of course, that is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and a little bit of Instagram mixed with a lot of Facebook. But now going on to the next question, this goes out of the realm of social media into the next Jamiroquai album, which is, of course, been said many times by many band members, including J.K., Matt Johnson, and Rob Harris, that the ninth Jamiroquai album is currently in the work. Currently could be recording, currently compositionally being recorded. We have heard many differing reports. JK directly saying that recording was happening as of earlier this year in a radio interview. I believe that was on the Fern Cotton Show on BBC Radio 2. But where would you like to see the upcoming ninth Jamiroquai studio album go musically and conceptually? Which direction would you like to see it go?
Really, I feel like I'd like to see a representation of the past, but also a representation of the future. And I think that generally, I would really like to see them go back to their roots and bring back some sort of brass section and overall the more orchestral feel or more orchestral funk feel they had in the first few albums. Of course, I know that's a pretty dry take, and I know that that's what a lot of people say, but I really think they should also maybe bring in some collaborators with like what bands like Gorillaz are doing, just to sort of spice it up and change up their flow because people know their flow at this point. Jamiroquai is a pretty old band, but I definitely think they could shake things up and bring in some different voices of reason within the music that could maybe open the audience up to more people.
I completely feel you on that. I've had several conversations with you and many other members of the Jamley, most notably over the last 2 years, about where I would like to see the ninth Jamiroquai album go out, which is speculatively possibly going to be at the earliest potentially coming out maybe late 2024, the latest being in sometime in 2025. But I agree with you. I would love to see them do a bit of a Gorillaz approach, at least a latter Gorillaz approach, with it being a 50-50 collaborative event with the artists that they were influenced by, Stevie Wonder, Dexter Wansel, Ramsey Lewis, just to name a few, and some of the newer artists that are coming up in the burgeoning pop mainstream scene, which is more intellectual than ever, with the likes of maybe Bruno Mars, Anderson .Paak, The Internet, Wolfpack comes to mind, maybe Lettuce. There's a lot of great artists out there in the R&B funk soul that are rediscovering funk and bringing it back to a whole new threshold generation of young people to absolutely luxuriate in. And Silk Sonic is a great example of when you go completely throwback. Now, my next question is going to be looking at the ever distant future of Jamiroquai's potential music making beyond the ninth studio album. Do you think beyond the ninth studio album from Jamiroquai will continue to make music together, or do you think they will end up potentially disbanding and going into an ecosystem of band members making their own music into the foreseeable future?
I think personally that I feel like after the Nine studio album, they should really just stick to singles. A lot of major artists like that I can think of that are from the '90s, such as like Jamiroquai or that kind of stuff, have now moved on and started making singles after their albums just sort of dried out. Of course, Jamiroquai hasn't done this yet because Jamiroquai is still a steam train rolling with a lot of different music and a lot of different approaches to music. But I think that after the Nine studio album, it might be time for them to take a roll down, stop putting so much work into one big project, and maybe just release some smaller projects before they end up disbanding, which of course is going to happen in the near future. But I can only hope that they stick along together and try to produce as much music as they can before they become disbanded and produce their own music, or maybe just take a break because they're old.
Oh yeah, yeah. J.K. and them are kind of old. They're like me. They've got mothballs in their clothes and their funky hats, and their instruments don't sound very sullen, given that's got like 4 layers of dust on them. But yeah, I see your point. Jamiroquai is a band. It's not just one guy, as the casual music fan approach to understanding Jamiroquai is. They've been always been an eclectic mixture of different music genres, convalescing into an amazing world music, masterful acid jazz kind of kibosh of music. And in the distant future, I do completely agree. I think Jamiroquai doing like singles rather than albums, taking the average 2 to 7 years for an album is a very arduous thing, especially when you get older. The influences, the actual inspiration is kind of more greatly diminished, and it's usually the sum of the parts rather than the sum of the man that ends up making them able to create amazing new albums. And given how Jamiroquai has eclectically been ahead of the curve with everybody and their forebears of the mainstream music scene, I do agree. I think Jamiroquai is going to pump the brakes a little bit, maybe do singles for a good amount of time, put them up as pay downloads, maybe on the official Jamiroquai website or maybe their own individual publishing company. I don't really see a future of corporate record labels for these artists. I think Jamiroquai diversifying themselves and going independent and releasing their music on their own terms when they want to, in a more of an organic environment, could be the thing that could be the key to a longer longevity for Jamiroquai or for them individually as artists. Now, moving on, this interview, I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do the final question. Actually, I'm going to do several questions about specifics of Jamiroquai. This next question is, what was the first time you discovered the music of Jamiroquai? And please go into great detail about your experience first discovering Jamiroquai in your musical listening.
So my first experience of Jamiroquai was I was looking around some old CDs that my dad had owned, and I noticed a CD that was labeled as funk and jazz, and I was like, oh well, I'm super into jazz and funk and that kind of stuff because I had previously listened to certain bands that were also jazz and funk related. Nothing I can go into in specific detail, but I don't know. I was really into Bruno Mars then, and I put it in a CD player, and the first song that played was Virtual Insanity. So it turned out most of the mix was Jamiroquai. It was Virtual Insanity, then it led into Space Cowboy, and then a few other songs I couldn't particularly name right now. But it was all just wonderful things that honestly just stimulated my brain, and I decided to look them up, and I became infatuated with their music and their style and their flow, and just especially how their messages really resonated with me because they were simple, but they were positive and made me feel good about how the future of the world and how people are going to treat others.
That is an absolutely amazing and very oddly very deep answer, and I do not usually hear that kind of answer from very young Jamiroquai fans, especially ones that started their patronage with Jamiroquai around Traveling Out Moving, which you'd be surprised a great majority of either the casual Jamiroquai family or the very seasoned Jamley jumped into Jamiroquai around Traveling Out Moving in 1996 to 97. As for me, I'm kind of an old OJ, as I like to call it. You know how people in hip hop call people who have been there since the beginning of hip hop OGs? Well, I like to call them OJs. And it has nothing to do with OJ Simpson. It's OJ, which means Old Jamley. So for me, just to do a TLDR on my discovery of Jamiroquai, 1992 December, I was in a record store. I was in the vinyl section, and it just so happened that on the in-stereo system of that record store, they were playing a 12-inch white label vinyl promo of Jamiroquai's first single, When You Gonna Learn, which at the time Jamiroquai had signed to the one of the most prominent, preeminent indie labels in London called Acid Jazz Records. And that's when I first discovered the Quai. And from that point on, to quote the famous song from the first album, I was hooked up to Jamiroquai. And from that point forward, there was nothing else that was more passionate in my life than Jamiroquai. And that leads me into my next question. What is your favorite Jamiroquai album, and what is your favorite Jamiroquai song? You can go into detail of both on what your favorite album and song by Jamiroquai is.
Personally, my favorite album by Jamiroquai is Dynamite. I really enjoy the consistent tracks and overall just the feel of the album, where it's sort of leaning into the future, but it's held back by the past enough that you can still feel that original Jamiroquai feel. I think there are some albums like Automaton and Sort of Rocked Us Lightstar that kind of really went into the future. And while I think that there's good about those albums, I didn't appreciate, or I no, I appreciated them, but I didn't resonate with them with the same way that I did with the earlier albums, including Dynamite, because I just felt Dynamite really like hit me home because it was sort of modern funk at its like transition era, and I really enjoyed the tracks that went along with that. My favorite song, though, personally, is Manifest Destiny from the second album, Return of the Space Cowboy. That being mostly because it has a lot of really solid drum and bass that I've really just enjoyed, and the flow of JK's vocals, especially in the second verse, they really make me feel good, and it's just a calm song that I can just relax to if I want to late at night. And it really resonated with me, and I even bought the vinyl for Return of the Space Cowboy just to listen to it as crisp as I could.
I feel you on that completely. As for me, I still think their magnus opus, of course, as you touched on at the second half of your answer for Manifest Destiny, of course, is Return of the Space Cowboy. That album is just an absolute smorgasbord of the best of immersing planet Earth, and of course the latter albums you hear a lot of the lyrical topical head of the curveness that Toby Smith and JK together could end up just absolutely knocking out of the park. As for my favorite song, probably not the most unintentional, but the most intentionally autobiographical song that JK has ever written, probably the most honest song he's ever written since Virtual Insanity in 1996, is Just Another Story. If you look at the lyrics of Just Another Story, it's literally the blueprint of JK's, very privileged but very turbulent life and his young life, from him losing his twin brother in childbirth to a non-distant Portuguese musician father who was never there for him, who later on in life Jay would actually end up going and visiting in Portugal himself and trying to reconnect with his father. So just into the story, absolutely amazing song. If any of you out there in the Jamley currently listening to QUAICast have not heard that song, listen to it, study it, look at the lyrics, look at the freeform jazz and acid jazz on display. Quite literally the most important song JK's probably ever written. But this leads me to my final question. That is absolutely about JK. I recently had the absolute honor and privilege to meet JK one on one. Of course, people who probably only listen to the QUAICast probably didn't know that between August 22nd to 27th of 2023, I was actually invited by the band Jamiroquai out to Victorious Festival, which was a music festival in Portsmouth, England, which is right next to the east coast of England, right off the coast of the ocean, and was an absolutely amazing, and dare I say, one of the best live performances from Jamiroquai during the 2023 European festival tour. But if you, Nautic, had the chance to have a one-on-one with JK, what would you say or want to talk to him if you were given the opportunity to talk to JK of Jamiroquai?
Personally, I would just compliment him because of his amazing contribution to the music industry and his overall positive messages that he's brought across the world. I'm really one for positivity and just generally bringing positivity up and bringing negativity down because I feel like folks really like to hone in on what makes life negative and they like to complain. But I feel like JK and that kind of that positive messaging that he leaves in his music, it's just really it makes a good impact on the world. I would also really like to know what was up with Rock Dust Lightstar. No offense, but it was a little different. I know that it's been said to be live music that they can play well live, but I'm just a little curious. But yeah, I digress. I would also really just like to know how the band progressed to the way it is. I know there's a lot of background in that, why some of the band members left and that kind of stuff, but I feel like I would really like to know how the original line was formed because that's not really that talked about, and also how he feels about today's current line of band members, including himself, and how he feels about taking these concerts up and going out, and really how much longer he thinks he can handle going out and doing this kind of stuff. And yeah, that's really all I'd like to ask him.
Yeah, I completely feel on you on some of the lineup queries you could come up with about how Jamiroquai's sound really revolutionarily changed between the acid jazz and then their world music dabbling, and then straight into disco and house music and all the different reverberative experimentalism that happened thereafter, after the yard marker of traveling moving came along, because that was still the most eclectic mixture of all the palpable urban music that Jamiroquai was basically really deluging themselves with. Now, when it came to me, when I got to talk to JK for the very brief 15 minutes at backstage at Victoria's Festival, when I got to meet him, Jay was very tired at the time. He had just done an hour and 45-minute performance, giving, like I said, the best performance I have seen him do, at least in the post-automaton, post-pandemic era, at least in this European tour. And it was a very limited conversation I had with him, but we talked about topics of how he was able to keep his pristine vocals going. Possibility of Jamiroquai. One of the most frequently asked questions to me to ask JK was, when is Jamiroquai going to come back? Jamiroquai going to come back to the United States? When is Jamiroquai come back to the United States? He said, it's a matter of the economy. It's a matter of what they're doing. It's a matter if they have an album to support, which would be the most favorable circumstances for Jamiroquai to come back to the United States and tour. But it was a very honest, nice conversation, and he really complimented me and really enjoyed having seen my content on YouTube and many other places on social media over the years. He only became very cognizant of me over the last, I want to say, album cycle, at least Automaton. That's when most of Jamiroquai's band members became absolutely aware of all the content I was doing across all these social platforms and trying to keep the online family in the know. But yeah, that was basically my conversation with JK. But I do hope in the future, and I hope many other people get a chance to talk to JK. Maybe he does an open forum or some type of radio interview, or maybe maybe we'll do a Q&A here on the JK Hat official Discord in the future. But we'll see what the future brings us. But I would like to thank you, Nautic, for taking the time to come out here on the QUAICast and let me interview you. This has been very engaging, very deep conversation. Thank you for being on the QUAICast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really honored, as I said earlier, to be here and to be interviewed by you. And yeah, no, just thank you for having me, and I'm power to you, and I hope you continue on with the Quadcast for as long as you possibly can. And yeah, thank you.
You're more than welcome there, Nautic, and I wish you the best of luck on the fledgling official Jamiroquai Discord at JK Hat. And for all the listeners here on the QUAICast, if you are active on the Discord social media platform and would like to join me and Nautic and all the other near 1,000, that's right, there's now been over 1,000 people who have joined or in the process of joining the new fledgling official Jamiroquai Discord called JK Hat server. So if you're interested in joining the server today on Discord, just the invite code is discord.gg/jkhat. One word, jkhat, and you can join us over on the official Jamiroquai Discord at jkhat and join in on a lot of things are planned for this official Discord, from Q&As with select band members to events to maybe listening parties. But like I said, this is a fledgling server, and they're still trying to get all the kinks out and make sure this environment is becoming and very respectful of everybody from the internet Discord of life to come and join us on the new Discord Jamly over at the official Jamiroquai Discord. By the way, just for a self plug, yes, I can self plug. This is my podcast, so I can do that. I also have a public Discord server for the R Jamiroquai and R the Reddit Jamly Reddit community. It's a public server, and if you want to come there, it's more of laid back. People come on there and talk about Jamiroquai when they want to. If you like a invite code to that Discord as well, it's just pretty active as of recently. I will put invite codes to both of those Discord servers, one for JK Hat and the one for my public server, down in the description area of this episode of the QUAICast podcast down below upon its upload on Podcasters and Spotify. Again, thank you again, Nautic, for being here on the QUAICast. And as always, this is Jamiroquai2000, and I'll see you again really soon with more Jamiroquai related content here on the QUAICast, a Jamiroquai podcast by the Jamly for the Jamly. Bye bye, everybody, and take care.